The Burren in County Clare is one of the only places on Earth where Arctic, Mediterranean, and alpine plants grow side by side on the same limestone pavement. Do you know Slieve League's cliffs in County Donegal loom nearly 3 times higher than the Cliffs of Moher? Yet most tourists have never heard of them. Perched on a headland where ancient fossilized reef structures tilt into the Atlantic, Hook Head Lighthouse crowns one of the few coastal meeting points in the world where visible prehistoric seabeds rise directly from the sea. Do you know that Hook Head Lighthouse is not only one of the oldest operational lighthouses globally, but that its beacon may owe origins to 12th century monastic bonfires kept alive by local priests? Its stout stone tower, a spiral of generations, still carries the scars of medieval masonry and later Victorian ironwork. From here, the coastline unfurls into hidden coves and salt marshes that host migratory curlews and rare plants carried by a unique microclimate. Fishermen's tales speak of underwater caves and sudden currents, and the headland's geology spins stories of an ocean that has moved continents. Follow the line of the cliffs east, and you reach the marshy flats where the River Barrow meets the sea, stitching Hook Head to Wexford's estuaries. That connection mattered for centuries. Ships avoided these shoals thanks to the light that once guided wooden trading vessels to safe anchorage. Today, the same beam draws curious travelers who come to trace the seam between human history and raw coastal geology. These local myths thread Hook Head to neighboring villages where songs and place names preserve memories older than maps. Walking from the lighthouse along the cliff path, you can feel the landscape changing as peat bogs and farmland replace granite outcrops. That rural quilt leads naturally toward the open beaches where seals haul out and dolphins sometimes bow to passing boats. Hook Head functions like a geological and cultural hinge, linking invisible currents of water, history, and story across this corner of Ireland. Uncovering even one of its secrets feels like turning a page in an ancient book that keeps revealing new margins. In the rest of this film, we'll map those margins, from the stones beneath your feet to the light that first called ships home. Expect to meet the people who live with the lighthouse's shadow and the strange small wonders that cling to its base. Perched on a solitary limestone outcrop, the Rock of Cashel crowns one of Europe's rare karst plateaus, where medieval walls rise directly from fossil-rich bedrock. Do you know the Rock of Cashel sits over forests of ancient coral reefs turned stone, making its foundations as geologically spectacular as its history? Kings were anointed here, saints preached on the same stone, and Cormac's Chapel still shelters carvings that fuse Gaelic art with European influences. The round tower, cathedral ruins, and grave slabs create a skyline that reads like a history book written in stone. Walk its causeways and you can almost hear the echoes of bards and bishops debating the fate of a nation. Visitors are surprised to learn that the site was a royal capital before Dublin rose in prominence, a fact that reshapes how we see Ireland's medieval map. Beneath your feet, the limestone stores fossils and secrets, and narrow paths drop you into views across the Golden Vale, where rivers braid like threads. That broad patchwork of fields points toward the Galtee Mountains, a connective spine that guided pilgrims and armies away from Cashel toward Cahir Castle downstream. Cahir's fortress, visible on a clear day, became the next stage in many of the same dramas of power and siege that began on the rock. Archaeologists still unearth pottery and metalwork around Cashel that hint at daily life, kitchen smoke, children's toys, and pilgrim badges tucked into pockets. Those artifacts rewrite the calm stone image into a lived-in place of markets, politics, and movement across Europe. On a foggy morning, the ruins can look like ships anchored on a grassy sea, their silhouettes changing with light and weather. Photographers prize that mutable character because no two visits yield the same picture. As you turn from the rock and follow the lanes downhill, the town of Cashel tightens the narrative with quaint pubs and storytellers who keep oral histories alive. From their tales you trace paths to Cahir, the Galtees, and beyond, a chain of places that makes Ireland feel like a continuous story rather than isolated sites. The Burren's limestone pavement shelters Mediterranean orchids and Arctic alpine flowers growing side by side, a botanical paradox found in only a handful of places worldwide. Do you know that within its gray clints and deep grikes, tiny pockets of soil nurture plants and fossils that trace back to the Ice Age? Polished slabs of Carboniferous limestone create a moonscape of fissures and ridges that defies typical Irish landscapes. Yet in those fissures, you can find spring gentians, mountain avens, and stone bramble thriving where most expect only feath. Human hands left marks too, with Pulnabrony dolmen and other tombs standing as silent witnesses to Neolithic rituals. Walk its lanes and you'll pass ring forts, field walls, and hut sites that stitch past and present together. Below water-carved passages, Ailwee caves, stalactites, and river show the Burren story runs underfoot. Local farmers still tend limestone fields, their grazing shaping a mosaic that supports wildlife and long-standing traditions. The coast folds the Burren into the Atlantic, where limestone shelves drop to clear seas and clifftop views angle toward the Cliffs of Moher. From Doolin to Ballyvaughan, song, seafood, and stonework bind communities that read the land's peculiar rhythms. Conservation here is inventive. Grazing regimes, scrub control, and responsible tourism protect fragile plant communities. Researchers return season after season, mapping microclimates and finding botanical surprises among lichens and rare mosses. The Burren is concentrated, a compressed archive of geology, ecology, and human history that rewards slow attention. As sunlight moves across fluted limestone, shadows reveal hidden gardens and the map of an ancient coastline lifted into the present. Next, we'll follow a narrow road from the stone pavements toward the thunder of the Cliffs of Moher, tracing how rock and sea shape Ireland's edge. But before we leave, pause to imagine how a landscape that looks barren can be among the most biologically rich on Earth. Along the Ring of Kerry, you can travel from glacial lakes to sheer Atlantic cliffs within minutes, an extraordinary concentration of geological contrasts found on very few coastal routes in the world. Do you know Valentia Island, pierced into the loop, preserves Devonian fossil footprints that push the story of life onto land back by hundreds of millions of years? The road winds through mountains and peat bogs, past secretive loughs and polished stone roads carved by ancient ice, each bend revealing a different chapter of terrain. From those high moors, the route drops to wild coastlines where Skellig Michael's monastic beehive huts rise from rock like a stone cathedral, a human presence clinging to the relentless sea. Villages such as Sneem, Waterville, and Cahersiveen feel almost suspended in time, their narrow streets threaded with stories of fishermen, poets, and rebel legends. On the water, seals and fulmars punctuate the surf, while the air carries the salt and peat smoke of hearths that have warmed these homes for centuries. Turning inland toward Killarney, the ring connects into oak woodlands and cascading waterfalls where herds of native red deer move like living echoes of older forests. Muckross House and its subtropical gardens attest to the Gulf Stream's unexpected generosity, allowing exotic rhododendrons and tree ferns to flourish beside native birch. Scattered ring forts and medieval castle ruins such as Stag and Cahergall stand as stone pages, pointing to Iron Age craftsmanship and clan tensions etched into the landscape. Maritime lanes shaped by monks and merchants crisscross these coasts, and the oral maps of storytellers still guide modern travelers toward hidden inlets and ancestral pubs. Light here is a storyteller too, shifting from bruised winter storms to luminous summer evenings that redraw colors and mood in a single hour. Farmhouses and coastal kitchens serve seafood cured by sea air, and simple cheeses that taste like the very grasses of the hills, anchoring the landscape to its table. The Ring of Kerry is not simply a scenic drive, but a continuous handoff from geology to history to culture, each place feeding the next with new mysteries. Follow the coast a little farther toward the Skellig Ring and Portmagee, and those mysteries deepen, promising remote ruins, seabird colonies, and cliffs that still keep their secrets. Beneath the glassy surface of Lough Gur in County Limerick, a peat-ringed lake preserves traces of human activity stretching back 6 millennia. Do you know Lough Gur hides Europe's densest concentration of prehistoric monuments in a single lakeside landscape? Ring forts, stone circles, wedge tombs, and ancient dwellings cluster along its shores like chapters in a buried book of Ireland's earliest communities. The archaeology here is not scattered. It forms a continuous narrative where Neolithic, Bronze Age, and Iron Age sites overlap and inform one another. Walk the gentle banks and you pass the boat grave, a curving stone alignment that speaks of funerary rituals once performed at the water's edge. Across a short spit lies the restored Ballycrovane Ogham stone, its letters hinting at early Irish names and lineages carved into living memory. In winter, the mist rises off the lake and reveals low mounds that are actually burial cairns, their outlines preserved by peat and folklore. Local tales mingle with carbon dates, and each excavation peels back a story that echoes beyond the stones into landscape and language. Lough Gur also holds a quieter curiosity: submerged tree stumps and paleo channels that map ancient shorelines, now swallowed by rising peat. Environmental archaeology here has reconstructed climate shifts and human responses, showing people adapting to changing water and soil conditions. That close relationship between people and place is palpable at the visitor center, where models and finds anchor those giant monuments to real lives. From there, a short walk connects you to the Dromore Wood and onto rolling limestone pastures, where later medieval farmsteads continued the thread of settlement. The route links past to present, illustrating how lakes, woodlands, and fields shaped farming, feasting, and belief for centuries. As sunlight skims the water, gulls wheel above, and you begin to see Lough Gur as a living archive rather than an isolated relic. This is a place where archaeology, ecology, and folklore are braided together, inviting visitors to read the land with patience and curiosity. Stay with the stories that follow, and Lough Gur will reveal not just stones, but the rhythm of lives that made the Irish landscape what it is. By tracing paths from cairn to lake to Ogham stone, you can reconstruct alliance, rituals, and seasonal movements that defined life in ancient Munster. In the chapters ahead, we will follow those pathways and uncover the human decisions hidden in soil and stone around Lough Gur. Giant's Causeway preserves over 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, a crystalline carpet formed by an ancient volcanic eruption. Do you know Giant's Causeway's columns cooled in patterns so precise that many are almost perfect hexagons? Walk among causeway stones, and you'll find tightly packed pillars, stepping like an immense geological staircase. Scientists explain they formed when lava cooled, contracted, and cracked into polygonal columns over 60 million years ago. Local legend says the causeway was thrown across the sea by the giant Fionn mac Cumhail to confront a Scottish rival. Those tales echo across Ireland's coastal folklore and tie this place to dramatic sea cliffs and ruined castles nearby. From here, the Causeway coastal route threads past the ruined Dunluce Castle and the smoky chimneys of Bushmills Distillery. A short boat ride reveals Rathlin Island's puffin colonies, showing how geology, history, and wildlife meet along this rugged shoreline. At low tide, the columns reveal tidal pools and barnacled facies, each one a little museum of marine life. Sunset slants across the basalt, turning black stone into glints of bronzes and glassy reflections. Stand on the hexagonal stones and listen. Waves drum, gulls cry, and wind shapes the tone of the entire coast. Photographers and poets have chased this light and listless geometry for generations, finding new compositions each season. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Giant's Causeway is protected for its unique geological importance and fragile habitats. Careful paths keep visitors safe, while interpretive centers explain the science and stories that make the site unforgettable. From Giant's Causeway, the coastline invites travelers onward, driving the Causeway coastal route towards the Cliffs of Moher and Galway beyond. In the next chapter, we'll follow that road, tracing how volcanic fire shaped Ireland's wild living edges. In the heart of Ireland's Wicklow Mountains, Glendalough harbors one of the world's rare intact glacial ribbon valleys, where twin lakes cradle a monastery founded in the 16th century. Do you know that St. Kevin's Bed, a small rock cave above the upper lake, sheltered the saint and remains a pilgrimage touchstone few expect? Walk from the ruined cathedral past the cloister and the leaning round tower, and you sense how each stone links monastic life to the surrounding landscape. The round tower is not only a landmark, but a witness to Viking raids and medieval scholarship, standing between the lower and upper lake where pilgrims once gathered. Follow the green road toward the Spink Cliff, and the path opens wide views, revealing how glacier and faith carved this valley together. Higher up, Pullanas Waterfall tumbles over ancient ledges into a deep pool, and local tales say the water eased more than physical wounds. Botanists prize Glendalough for rare montane plants and lichens on damp rocks, a living archive linking the site to Ireland's wider wild places. Hikers crossing boardwalks from the monastic precinct to the upper lake pass cross slabs and grave markers, their worn inscriptions keeping quiet histories. In winter, mist wraps the lakes and silence folds centuries into a single breath, while summer brings the soft bleat of sheep and distant bells. Every footpath here connects to another. Trails from the visitor center thread to peaks like Lough Gur, making the valley both destination and gateway. Few know Glendalough also functioned as an early medieval school, where students copied manuscripts that later traveled across Ireland and Europe. Standing on the causeway between the two lakes, you touch geology, devotion, and daily life, and you imagine the untold stories still resting under the stone. Local guides still recount the stories of scholars and hermits who debated theology by lakeside, their voices imagined among the reeds. In Glendalough, every stone, pool, and path invites a closer look, promising that the next bend will reveal something you didn't know you were seeking. Perched on a razor-edged cliff where the Atlantic pours its fury into a narrow throat, Dunluce Castle seems to hang between sea and Causeway. Legends say parts of the kitchen fell into the ocean during a storm in 1639, and some locals still claim they hear distant clattering on stormy nights. The castle's ruins, weathered by salt and time, frame windows like empty eyes staring at the horizon. Archaeologists have discovered medieval artifacts here that suggest the site was occupied long before the visible stonework, connecting Bronze Age settlers to later Gaelic lords. For centuries, Dunluce was a stronghold of the MacDonald clan and a prize in feuds that shaped the map of Ulster. Its strategic location made it both a fortress and a symbol, where alliances were forged over treacherous waves and nightly fires. Stones at Dunluce tell of banquets and betrayals of a family that once ruled these windswept reaches. Visitors can still trace the outline of hallways and stairwells where courtiers moved beneath banners now turned to lichen. The castle's silhouette inspired poets and composers who imagined lovers leaping across the gaps or ghosts prowling the ramparts. Film crews have also been drawn here, finding in Dunluce a dramatic backdrop that seems unreal until you stand within the crumbling walls. Walk the narrow causeway and sense how the sea has shaped history, carving cliffs and testing every foundation. dusk, gulls wheel through shafts of light, and the stones glow with a warmth that contradicts the wind. That light reveals graffiti and initials scratched by lovers, connecting modern visitors with whispers from centuries past. Conservationists now work to preserve fragile sections, using techniques that balance authenticity with urgent protection. Each repair raises questions about how to honor the past while keeping it accessible for future generations. Dunluce is more than ruin and rock. It's a living palimpsest of memory, myth, and geology. As you move on from these cliffs, the story continues down the coast, where basalt columns and secret beaches pick up the narrative. The Cliffs of Moher shoot skyward up to 214 meters above the Atlantic, forming a sheer wall of rock along 8 kilometers of coastline. Do you know the cliffs' layered Namurian shale and sandstone hold fossils and clues to a landscape formed some 3 million years ago? From certain angles, whole islands of rock detach as sea stacks, sculpted by relentless waves and hidden currents. Over 30 species of seabirds nest on those ledges, turning the cliffs into a living, winged city each breeding season. O'Brien's Tower perches on a headland, once a lookout and now a focal point for photographers chasing shifting light and weather. Beneath the cliffs, caves and arches whisper of collapse and renewal, forces still at work beneath our feet. Walk the cliff path, and you follow ancient rhythms, erosion, flight, and the slow drift of sediment into the sea. Interpretive exhibits nearby explain how conservation balances millions of visitors with fragile habitats and rare coastal plants. On clear days, the Aran Islands hover on the horizon, a stony bridge linking the cliffs to human history and Gaelic culture. That connection continues inland toward the Burren, where limestone pavements echo the cliff's long geological narrative in a different stone language. Local stories speak of shipwrecks and smuggling, but they also tell of fishermen who learned to read the sea like a map. In storm months, The surf pounds the base with a sound that feels almost like an ancient warning, a reminder the coast is alive. At dusk, the cliffs shift color, cliffside grasses glow, and seabird calls thread the air into a chorus that lingers. Visitors are urged to stay on marked paths and respect barriers because unseen erosion can make any edge dangerous. Scientists monitor nesting success and cliff movement to predict future changes as climate patterns alter storm frequency. From the cliff's heights, the coastline reads like a ledger of time, and the next chapter, the Burren and Arran fields, waits to be explored. Slieve League cliffs rise to nearly 600 meters above the Atlantic, plunging in some places more steeply than better-known sea cliffs anywhere else in the world. Do you know that Slieve League's Gothic hair face holds narrow ledges where hardy wildflowers cling to windswept rock, creating ribbons of color against black basalt? From the coast road, the cliffs look almost vertical, but a network of old pilgrim paths and modern trails invites those who prefer feet-to-camera lenses to walk the heights. As you move along the ridge, the Atlantic opens into a vast rolling plain of churning water, where seals and gannets claim the spray and shoals of mackerel twist like silver threads. The scale here shifts perspective, making familiar islands feel like toys and turning ancient stones into markers of human smallness and stubborn joy. Local stories say that on calm mornings, the cliffs throw back the sound of voices and the sea keeps secrets of shipwrecks and lost smugglers. A history that links Slieve League to nearby Donegal villages. Walkers who begin at Teelan Harbour carry that living history up narrow tracks past stone walls and peat banks, a route that threads together coastal communities and the wild high place. From Slieve League, you can follow the spine of the coast toward Malin Head, or swing south again to the sheltered coves where music, Gaelic, and seafood continue the island's long cultural conversation. Photographers chase light that scours the rock faces at dawn, revealing layers of ancient geology and the scars of glaciation that sculpted this ragged coastline. Birdwatchers count fulmars and peregrines that ride thermals above the cliff edges, while historians trace the same winds that once carried monks and marauders between remote headlands. Dingle Peninsula harbors one of the world's most concentrated arrays of ancient sea stacks and petrified dunes, where limestone cliffs fold into Atlantic surf in patterns found almost nowhere else. Do you know the Blasket Islands off its western tip hold ruins of a vanished Irish-speaking community and archaeological layers that rewrite our ideas of island life? Start at Slieve Head, and you'll find ringed promontories and prehistoric forts that face the Atlantic like weathered guardians. From Slieve Head, the road curves toward quiet coves where beehive huts and stone churches like Galaris Oratory survive intact. They're mortarless stones whispering early Christian craftsmen's secrets. Close by, the Blasket Center preserves recorded stories and songs that connect the peninsula's rugged landscape to voices you can still hear today. The tiny harbor town of Dingle itself remembers those voices with pubs where Sean Now's singers and fishermen exchange tales about fungi, the resident dolphin who has been making names for himself for decades. Crossing inland toward Connor Pass reveals a different scale. Sharp mountains, glaciated quarries, and panoramas that link Dingle visually to the Everag Ridge beyond. Those high roads were once trade routes, and the hollows below hide bogs where bog oak and ancient pollen act as time capsules of climate and human influence. On storm nights, the cliffs sing differently, and poets say those sounds are why so many of Ireland's oldest myths gathered here along the edge of the ocean. From those cliffs, you can imagine voyages heading south toward Skellig and west toward the open Atlantic. A reminder that Dingle was both destination and departure in Ireland's long maritime history. Every stone cottage, standing stone, and harbor here is a footnote in a larger story that stretches across peninsulas and islands, connecting landscape, language, and legend. To walk Dingle is to touch both geological time and living culture, and to follow one place's trail inevitably leads you to the next, whether it's the rolling hills of Everag or the ancient monastic sites scattered along the coast. In the coming minutes, we'll explore one of those monastic islands and uncover why a small stone church on a distant rock mattered to the whole Atlantic world. Stay with me, and you'll see how Dingle's cliffs are not just scenery, but a chapter in a history that reaches far beyond the map's edge. Killarney National Park shelters Ireland's only native red deer herd and one of the last expanses of Atlantic oakwood in Europe. Do you know that its three linked lakes, Lough Gur, Muckross Lake, and the Upper Lake, form an ancient watery corridor that has shaped human life here for millennia? Muckross Lake's dark peat-stained waters mirror cliffs and ancient trees hiding islands that were once refuges for monks and Mihits. Torque Mountain rises like a green sentinel near Balboy, its trails revealing panoramic views that fold into the famously rugged McGillicuddy's reeks beyond. Walk under the cathedral-like canopy of oak and yew, and you might glimpse the silent, shy red deer slipping between trunks older than recorded history. Muckross House, with its Victorian terraces, sits at the edge of these wildlands, a human echo stitched into a landscape that refuses to be tamed. From the mansion's gardens, you can cross into peat bogs and blanket mires, where rare bryophytes and lichens cling to a cool, damp world. The park is a living mosaic, woodland, lake, mountain, and bog, that sustains migrating birds, otters, and a surprising variety of aquatic plants. Boating across Lough Gur, the skyline dissolves into islands. Ross Island holds archaeological traces that tell of Bronze Age people who fished and farmed these shores. Cyclists and hikers who follow narrow boreens will find the Gap of Dunluce waiting, a dramatic glacial cleft that links Killarney to the desolate beauty of the Ring of Kerry. Local guides still speak of hidden palcasts and legends tied to fairy forts tucked among the hills. Stories that make every footpath feel like a doorway. Conservation efforts here have carefully bled cultural heritage into ecological restoration, bringing back native tree species and protecting sensitive shoreline habitats. Visit in spring, and carpets of bluebell and primrose will line ancient lanes, while autumn turns the oak canopy into a furnace of color, reflected on glassy lakes. The park's silence is not empty. It hums with the sounds of insects, distant bird calls, and the soft slap of oars. An intimate soundtrack to a landscape that has survived wars and industrial change. Killarney is more than a postcard. It's a living archive where geology, ecology, and human story are braided together in ways you won't easily forget. Later in this journey, we'll follow the mountain tracks out toward the reeks and down along the coastline, tracing how Killarney's rivers find the sea and change everything they touch. From the hexagonal basalt pillars of the Giant's Causeway to the limestone pavements of the Burren, Ireland stitches together landscapes found nowhere else on Earth. These places are not just scenic backdrops, they are living archives where volcanoes, glaciers, and ancient seas wrote the island's story. Along the western edge, the Cliffs of Moher rise like an ocean wall, their faces hosting thousands of nesting seabirds and whispering tales of shipwrecks hidden below. Drive inland and the Burren reveals its astonishing secret. Arctic, alpine, and Mediterranean plants growing elbow to elbow on the same moon-like limestone. The Ring of Kerry's winding roads and Skellig Michael's monastic stone cells tell of human stubbornness, where monks carved sanctuaries into windswept rock and lived nearly alone. On Skellig's crags, puffins still tumble from stone ledges, and centuries of human quietness leave a silence that feels almost sacred. Eastward, the Wicklow Mountains cradle glacial valleys and hidden lakes like Glendalough, where twin tarns were carved by ice and folklore insists kings still walk the ridges at dusk. Further north, Lough Gur spreads across the land as the largest freshwater lake in these isles, feeding myths as well as fisheries. Every village and coastal inlet stitches to the next. The Burren's rare plants are pollinated by winds that also carry sea spray to Connemara, and rivers that cut through Wicklow eventually find the Atlantic. These connections make Ireland not a collection of sites, but a single breathing ecosystem where geology and culture are braided together. So when you leave, you won't just take photographs. You'll carry fragments of weather, language, and landscape that are older than many nations. And the real surprise is this: pockets of rare biodiversity and forgotten ancient engineering survive in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Come for the cliffs, stay for the shadows between stone walls, and return with questions the maps never answered. Because Ireland's last secret is simple: the ordinary places hide extraordinary stories that only a slow walk can reveal.